Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to Community Crossfire. My name is Sam Guy. I'm your host. I have a couple of things I'd like to try to do today. One of them is I want to share with you a recent decision that the Attorney General issued a couple of days ago, leading into the weekend. But before I do that, I need to remind you about a prior decision that the Attorney General issued. As you all know, I told folks quite some time ago that because folks kind of just want to do whatever they want to do, whether it's with money or whether it's with the procedures, etc., that city council is basically just the wild, wild west. Just the folks who think that they're the boss of everybody. They just do whatever they want to do. And they have a crew of people that permits them to just do whatever they want to do. And it's like a train wreck. So I'm not even going to talk about some of the issues that have previously been discussed widely. I'm going to just focus on two right now. Back on June the 19th, you all may have been aware that as a result of a complaint that I had filed with the Attorney General's office, alleging that President Shabazz had created a little committee of the people she wanted to work with, that she had a meeting, the mayor was at the meeting, and the lawyer, the city solicitor, Meta, was at the meeting, and that they were having illegal meetings, and that they had done it more than once, and they planned on continuing to do it, even though they had been told that they need to be reviewing the Freedom of Information Act laws. Because what you all have to understand is the Freedom of Information Act is for the protection of the citizenry. It has a couple of components. It has to do with open meetings. And so in that particular instance, my concern was that they weren't having open meetings. In other words, normally meetings are posted, and if the public wants to come to the meeting, certain types of meetings, then the public can come. But instead, she was organizing these secret meetings. And that's been one of our problems with City Council from the beginning about all the secrecy. And as you all know, all the secrecy is starting to come to light with all of the little things that are going on that are improper. And so back on June the 19th, the Attorney General ruled that her meetings were violating the Freedom of Information Act, the open meeting laws component. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, back on April the 16th, there was a city council meeting. And you all recall, April the 6th, there was a city council meeting. And 3 items were voted on. One item was to give a $40,000 raise to the chief of police, and he wasn't even working for the city yet. And if you recall, the community and the public was in an uproar about this $40,000 raise, and a lot of people were upset with respect to how fast it happened and the fact that the public wasn't aware that this was taking place this fast. So that was one item. Another item that was on the agenda had to do with the audit committee being modified. And the third item on the agenda had to do with her effort to have me censored. So those 3 items were on the agenda. The public didn't know what was on the agenda because what the city council president did is she waited till the day before the city council meeting to let the public know that the pay raise and the audit committee ordinances were going to be on the agenda. So she didn't have that publicly posted until the day before the meeting. Then on the day of the meeting, she snuck in a resolution on the morning of the council meeting designed to attack me. And her cronies, they're cowards. Because what happened is when the Attorney General investigated this, what he learned was all the way back on the 31st of March, her and her cowardly cronies already had the legislation. It was drafted. So what cowards do is instead of posting the 3 items on the agenda 7 days in advance as is required by law, they waited till the day before and posted 2 of the items, and they waited till the day of to post the 3rd one. Because cowards always have to sneak up behind your back and try to catch you when you're sleeping, because they know that you'll tear them up if they come straight to you. See, this is how Bud Friel, he's the leader of all of this crooked kind of sneaking around stuff. And he ain't got enough manhood in him. He knows. You got to remember, he works for the state of Delaware and he works for the Department of Transportation. So he knows that when committee meetings are held and things of that nature take place, he knows that the meeting notice has to be posted 7 days in advance. Hanifa Shabazz has been on council over 12 years. So has the sheriff. So all these people knew that you're supposed to post notice 7 days in advance. So what the cowards did do is they did an ambush. Now anybody who saw the meeting knows that I pretty much held my own, but I didn't get a chance to prepare to respond to the lies that were told and the crooked mess, like people taking one sentence out of a video without providing the whole video so that you understand the context. But it's okay, because when cowards do stuff like that under the leadership of President Shabazz, they basically are honoring you. They're basically saying, we're cowards. We can't step to you straight up, person to person. So we have to sneak around behind you to try to kill you. So that's a compliment. That means the whole crew of them knew that they couldn't beat me in a straight up fair fight. So they passed their resolution. So now here we are, August the 10th. And the Attorney General promulgates a document, they promulgate a document on August the 11th, I guess, dated the 10th. And in it, they determined that President Shabazz and her crew violated Delaware's Freedom of Information Act by not posting public notice of the meeting 7 days in advance. So I just wanted you all to know that, because what you all should also notice is that during this whole weekend, all the way since Friday, you haven't heard anything about this in the print media or the radio media. You haven't heard anything about it. Normally, when the Attorney General issues these decisions, they put stuff out to the media and they put it out on Facebook, and then it circulates all over the place. What they did this particular time, the Attorney General's office, is every other opinion that they've issued in the last 3 months, there's a link because they posted it to Facebook. This decision does not have that Facebook link. So if you go to the Attorney General's webpage and you look at all of the recent opinions, they made this one so that it wouldn't be distributed. Because by now, I shouldn't really be telling you news. It should be something that you've already heard about, either through radio, television, Facebook, etc. So it is on their website, but things don't move on a website. They sit there unless people go to see them. So that's pretty interesting. So probably next week, tomorrow, the next day, because the Attorney General's office and every governmental office in Delaware once our plant established this 9 o'clock hours back in the day, everybody either watches or they have somebody that works in their office who watches. That's just the norm in Delaware now, because you can have a problem not paying attention to what happens on Channel 28 on Sundays. Not just this show, but all the shows all day long. So I just wanted you to know, again, we have another act of lawlessness. So the Attorney General has now identified 2 occasions where the President of City Council is violating the law. So just follow her until you hear the handcuffs go clink. All the people who just want to follow blindly, just keep following, and we'll see how all this plays out. But I do want to remind you all of the question, and that is, where's my money? Because you all might have forgotten, but I haven't forgotten. And the media is trying to distract you. But all this issue about discretionary money had to do with the fact that there was a black man, a black woman, a white man, and a white woman who won the 4 at-large seats. And Hanifa Shabazz made a decision to give the black man $0. So while all y'all are watching what's happening in Virginia and spent your whole day yesterday watching and spent all day today watching, you got white supremacy happening right here in Wilmington. Because one of the fundamental tenets of white supremacy not only is attack on black people, but in particular the black man is the target, particularly because the black man is the target so as to destroy the black family. So when you see a black woman who sees a black man, a black woman, a white man, and a white woman, and she decides to make up some kind of crooked process to hook up her friends and give the black man $0, that's an unearthly person. I've spent my whole life fighting for civil rights and for black people to have an opportunity to be treated fairly. So it's very interesting that the Przickies and the Pacini Polans and the Bud Friels can get a black woman to give the black man no money. Now you explain that. Because she's supposed to be Miss Afrocentric. In a fair world, you'd get a fair division of the money. Fair can't possibly be 0 for the black man. But see, some of you all, if she's your friend, then it's okay for your friend to do that to the black man. But what I'll tell you is, every black man and every black woman has black men that are your relatives, your cousins, your friends, your spouses, your significant other. And so if this whole Wilmington, Delaware society watches Hanifa's black friends saying it's okay for Hanifa to give the black man $0, then don't you complain when they give your son 0 and when they give your husband 0. Just say that in Wilmington, we as the black friends of Hanifa Shabazz running up to the white supremacists saying it's okay that you gave Sam Guy $0, don't come crying when they do that to the black men that matter in your life. And I'm saying this because y'all forget that your friend is not more important than your community. And so it may be okay because she's your friend, but don't say nothing. Don't come crying. If you up there writing Facebooks talking about Sam Guy, you don't need to talk about her taking your money and not distributing you the money fairly. When you write that and then next week you calling up in the community talking about how your son was mistreated or how your husband or whatever was mistreated, okay. And the same thing applies to black men. You sitting up, that's my friend, okay. Now, when it's your friend, when they come and don't give you your money, don't give you your paycheck, fire you, don't say nothing. Don't complain about nothing. But just remember that Sam Guy stood up and said, hey, them days are supposed to be over where the black man gets nothing. I understand why there's some people who aren't black who don't have a problem with it. And I also understand that there's some white people who do have a problem with it, because righteousness is really important. And there can't be any justice or righteousness in four people who are all in the same position and one of them gets nothing. And anybody who receives money that they shouldn't have received, there's a problem with them. Because if they were your child, you'd tell your child, once you learn that somebody gave you too much change at the store, you're supposed to give it back. You all laugh and joke, but you all know that's what you teach your children. If you're at the register and you're supposed to get $10 back and they hand you a 20 by mistake, you teach your children to tell them they gave you too much. Well, see, the people who receive my money, which is either Loretta or Rashima, or probably both of them have portions of mine, they had an obligation to be stand-up, legit people once they learned, and they had a responsibility to say, Hanifa, hey, I have more than what I'm supposed to have. You're going to have to take this back, because I'm not being part of your crooked mess of trying to give the black man nothing. So that's where we are. So now, after I get nothing and I speak up about the improper handling of the discretionary funds and the inequitable treatment and the lack of justice and the lawlessness and the arbitrariness, next thing you know, I bring out a chart with all the data that shows what each person got. They spent 2 months withholding that from me, and I'm on city council. So the whole system's crooked because they won't even let a council person see where the money, where the money went. So as I was saying all these things, everybody's knowing the crookedness, but you all, you know, when something bad happens to a black man in America, generally speaking, it's okay. And you all know that's true. I don't care if you're red, yellow, blue, green, whatever, male, female, it don't matter. Whenever something outrageous happens to a black man, generally society is like, oh, well, that's okay. You all even have little funny phrases that you use that you can't talk about on TV about what always happens to the black man for the most part in the movie. So with that being the case, now all of a sudden the News Journal sees all the information I have. I filed a lawsuit in state court that got transferred to federal court by the city. They spent $400 to do that. They probably spent $5,000 to $10,000 to hire a lawyer to try to prevent me from getting my $2,000 so I can give it to the students who requested it. So there's no length that an owned Negro will go if the master tells them, well, see that guy, Sam Guy, we want you to keep him in check. We want you to not let him pass no legislation. We want you to block him from introducing legislation. We want you to take his money. But see, they won't do it themselves. They won't do it themselves. They sit back and they send her out there on a suicide mission. So now what happens is the News Journal, they're listening to what I'm saying because they know what I'm saying is right. Because see, any place other than the city of Wilmington with our large population of black people, out in the other areas where it's predominantly white, nobody's just regularly violating the Freedom of Information Act. Nobody's just regularly failing to notify the community what's on the agenda. The people who love me were supposed to know 7 days in advance that Hanifa and her cronies were trying to attack me. So the people who love me didn't even get an opportunity to come to the council meeting because it wasn't posted 7 days in advance. Because the cowards knew that some people would show up. I'm a criminal defense lawyer, and I've been doing that since the 80s. There's actually people that'll hurt somebody bothering me. Because people appreciate when you're a criminal defense attorney, you get people out of a lot of jams. There's people that'll hurt somebody. And I don't want nobody to hurt nobody. But I'm just saying I have love in this community. So the cowards had to do a sneak attack because they didn't want people showing up. Because some of the people might show up, might be in their faces. That's not what's needed, but I don't want anybody to get it twisted. There's a whole lot of love for me because I've been doing a lot for a long time to look out for the community. And I ain't been sneaking around taking nobody else's money, and I haven't been doing that kind of stuff, see? And I haven't been a sellout, and I'm not owned, so I can speak up for the community. So that's where we are. So because she didn't want me to have $2,000 or $3,000, now she's got a problem. Because then once the news journal saw all the list of money, once I got it after 2 months, then they wanted to know, well, what did this money get spent on? Well, see, I never asked that next question. I knew that I could ask it, but I didn't want to ask that next question because I didn't have a particular interest in looking at what the previous city council spent their money on, because I was focused on my little couple of $1,000s. Because I'm not the guy who's worried about taking what somebody else got. Just give me what I'm fairly due and I'm satisfied. Give me what's fairly mine, my fair share of whatever it is that we're doing. So then that's when they found out all this stuff that they're talking about large amounts of money and who it went to, which I don't have really, as far as I'm concerned, I know that Devin Henson does a heck of a job representing our children. So I'm actually the originator of the educational advocate program in City of Wilmington's government back in the 102nd council. I had the first educational advocate that the city paid for that went and represented our children. So I understand the nature of the work that he does, and I used to represent children myself. That's why I knew to get an advocate on board. So the work that he does is needed. In fact, we have to figure out how to continue to get that work done. And Devin needs to keep on doing the work. So I'm just letting you all know, as far as I'm concerned, we need to figure out how to get him some funding so he can keep on looking out for our children, because we're not looking out for our children. He's basically, if it wasn't for him looking out for our children, I mean, everybody knows that you got Jay Street as one elected official who's leading the charge. The other elected official is Charles Potter, who put in the legislation for the WE Act stuff. But those are the two main people that are legislators, elected officials, that's right now leading the charge as far as getting our children what they need. But he's the boots on the ground. So you all can get fooled all you want. You're not going to fool me. I'm not going to allow or agree for our children to die because there's some people that don't like how much money he got to do a job that's impossible, and there's not enough resources to help all of the kids in our community that need help. But we're one of those communities where somebody writes an article and then we ready to kill the people who fight for us. I done had it happen to me 1,000 times. All they got to do is write one derogatory thing about me, and then there's a portion of the people who, we with you, keep fighting, and then they running. They scared, Well, that's why they say derogatory stuff about the people who's actually fighting for you. There's no reason for Devin to have been in the article separate from any of the other agencies that got money. He just got more money. He's a black man. Don't you know that violates the rules for a black man to be getting more money, his organization, than any other organization? That's what the white supremacy thing is all about. Like, you all just you fall for the okie doke. So they're going to have you hating Devin. And all he did was did the work. All the people who've been helping him, he's helped over these years. The school districts are all mad with him because he does an effective job. So they're supposed to be mad with him. If the school districts wasn't mad with him, then that means he's probably not fighting for our kids. Y'all got to understand how the game works. So basically what they did is they wrote a story, put a big issue out there, and we're going to kill ourselves. We're going to kill our own children by not having the protection available to protect them. We do sick stuff. We do sick stuff. I want you, if you know Devin Henson, and you know that he's been representing our children all of these years, and if you flipped on him, if you even questioned him or doubted him, I want you to look in the mirror. Because nobody's produced any evidence that he did anything wrong other than got funded to look out for our kids. The reason why a lot of times you all feel like all your black elected officials ain't really looking out for you, that there's some who are and some who aren't, because a lot of them understand that it's dangerous caring about the community, because all somebody got to do is say something derogatory and boom, they flip. Nobody said Devin did anything improper whatsoever. It's not even been remotely alluded to. If you know him, if you got his phone number, you need to be calling him, telling him you appreciate all the years of him looking out. And you need to be helping to make sure that he continues to be funded some kind of way to keep looking out for our kids. School's getting ready to start in a few weeks. I can pretty much tell you there's going to be 300 to 600 kids that live in Wilmington that's going to need services that his agency provides. And so that means nobody's going to provide any services if he's not there. Oh, I forgot. That's right. This is what happens. Because they make you as black people hate yourself and the people who care about you so much. Then they'll go to Hanifa and tell her, well, you know that 150 that Devin was getting? There's a white agency that we want you to give that money to because they're going to represent kids. That's right. That's right. I forgot. That's how that all works. That's right. Because you'll kill your own guy and then you'll be happy. No, y'all ain't really like that, are you? I hope not. But more importantly, is your city council like that? What kind of city council do you have? Is your city council gonna deny funding to Devin to keep looking out for our children? They gonna do like they did me, like Hanifa did me, and give the black man $0? Let's watch and see. Let's watch and see how that plays out. But then it even gets deeper. See, Hanifa wanted to mess with my little dollars so much. Now they're questioning why is she sending money to an agency to give to a person who was just in elected office. And she's telling the media on videotape She didn't know where the money was going, but the person who received the money saying, I talked to her and she knew exactly where the money was going. See, you can't receive any money that a person doesn't hand to you. So really, you gotta, look at this and say, what kind of game is set up here? Now I want you all to think about this for a second. I'm gonna give you a hypothetical. So you got Mayor Pazicki sitting over there in the mayor's office, right? So let's make believe that it's 3 years from now, Pazicki decides that he's retiring. I want you to pay attention. He decides that he's retiring, but he still has $200,000 in his contingency fund. So the person who's going to take Pazicki's place, right, is somebody who's friendly with Pazicki. So then the day comes and the new mayor gets sworn in, and the new mayor takes the $200,000 that Pazicki has sitting there left in his contingency fund, and the new mayor takes that $200,000 and gives it to a nonprofit, and then the nonprofit is supposed to give half of the money to Pazicki so he can mentor some kids. Now, you all probably sitting there scratching your head, but I'm just saying, if what just happened is okay, that's what just happened. One elected official had money in his contingency fund. He left office. Hanifa took her place. Hanifa sent the money over to the nonprofit, and then the nonprofit gave money to the elected official. Now, if that's okay, because a lot of you all who's friends with certain people say it's okay, and then some people who don't like certain people say it's a problem. Then there's the people who just fairly looking at the thing and they taking a position with no bias one way or the other, and they scratching their head saying something about that don't look right. But I just gave you a scenario. So if it's okay, then that's what Mike Pazicki can do. So if it's okay, then what we now have is in corporate America, when executives leave, they have what they call golden parachutes. So in Delaware, do we have golden parachutes for elected officials? Or is this just some stuff that's allowed in a community that's 60 to 70% black? Or can in county council, Reverend Bullock, remember he left office? So would it have been okay if there had been $100,000 in the contingency fund? Would it have been okay for the new president of council, Hartley Nagel, to have sent $100,000 to a nonprofit, and then Reverend Bullock gets half of it to do something to mentor some kids? Would that have been okay? Out in the county council with the county money? Oh, okay. So now let's take this one more step. So let's say 3 years from now, President Shabazz decides she's retiring, she's not running again. And let's say there's $200,000 left in the contingency fund. And let's believe that the council is still crazy enough, like we are now, to let one person control all the money and give everybody else $10,000. I'm wondering if we're going to continue to be that crazy. Okay, and you should wonder too. Because if you, after all that's been out, if you live in a city council district and your council person only has $10,000 and you know that there's almost $400,000, and that's all they have after all of this, if that money's not split up better than that, then almost the whole city council need to be replaced. What kind of people, after all that's been learned, plus we didn't have no business doing this in the first place, which some of us spoke up and knew that this wasn't right, how they were splitting it up. But if folks continue to allow this, then you are in a mess, Wilmington residents. because there's no way that there can be $400,000 and 12 people get 10 and another person gets $300,000. They just do whatever they want to do, buy tickets to the boxing match, all on Facebook cheesing with the other council member, talking about they sponsored the boxing match. You got to remember, I didn't even know that $40,000 went to an agency to go to the former councilman when they were keeping me at $0. So that means that she wanted to make sure I had no money, when really, if she had a half an ounce of sense, she would have said, well, wait a minute. Okay, what's your fair amount that you should have had? Well, my fair amount of splitting that up evenly probably wouldn't have been any more than somewhere between $2,000 and $4,000. She would have said, you know what? I have $40,000 or more sitting over here. Here you go. Because, you know what, I'm supposed to be the president and I'm supposed to be a leader. And any leader would know that one person don't have no business doing zero. So she don't have to admit that she's wrong, but she would have been smart. Jim Baker would have never done nothing this stupid. Okay? And then you're going to mess with the money of somebody who can defend themselves. See, I've been fighting for you all my life. Sometimes I have to fight for me, but most of my time I'm fighting for you. And half the time, even when I'm fighting for you, it's for my fighting for me. It's really about fighting for you. When I'm fighting to get my scholarship money, I'm not giving myself the scholarship money. It's about getting the money to people who's asking me for money. Because I move around. I don't just move around where the rich people live. I also move around where the poor people live. Some people don't have poor people asking them for money because they don't deal with poor people. Okay? Some people deal in classism in addition to racism. Some people deal with everybody. So I'm just saying to you that under these kind of set of circumstances, you all better pay attention. But let's make believe that Hanifa leaves office and there's $100,000 in the contingency account, and this council's crazy enough to keep on letting her have all the money to do whatever she want to do. So the next person who comes in the council, she says to them, she leaves, they give the $100,000 to a nonprofit, and then the nonprofit gives her half the money to do some type of mentoring program. So then we as council members, as Wilmingtonians, we look like stupid people, don't we? Because basically what we have then is a system where you're going to tell me that it's okay for folks to just do that systematically? Y'all know better than that foolishness. So now you've been conned into public pronouncements in the newspaper and by a politician who got their hand in a cookie jar, distributing cookies where she wanted to distribute them, announcing that she's calling for an audit. Now, I wanted to fall on the floor laughing because I said, I want to watch how the community reacts to this. Now, you have to know about the audit process. And you notice that the News Journal didn't put a copy of the letter requesting an audit in the paper. You know how whenever there's a document that they put it online for you to be able to read it, to download it and print it? Did you notice that you didn't see any copy of a letter that was sent by the president of council asking the auditor to audit the money in the city? So you all could sit here for the next 10 years and an audit never occurs. But whoever heard of the person who just got caught with their hand in the cookie jar being the person who gets to decide whether it's a criminal investigation or an audit, whether it's a city audit or a state audit, whether it's a federal criminal investigation or a state criminal investigation. When did you ever hear the person who got caught with their hand in the cookie jar for the questionable behavior of sending money somewhere? So let's say the questionable behavior is okay. So then that means every politician in Delaware can take the contingency money and have their next person give it to a nonprofit so that they can give it to them. Now y'all know doggone well that there ain't going to be no golden parachute like that all throughout Delaware. It don't exist, and nobody wouldn't try no foolishness like that except in a black community. See, there's a different set of rules. That's why Pazicki is able to say, announce, he's going to enforce all these laws on West Center City, where it's predominantly black folks. That's why he feels comfortable saying we're going to try to take all this property, knowing that a lot of it is the only asset that certain black families might have inherited, as opposed to assisting them in being able to maintain and keep their property. It's called an exploitation. Wilmington is the city of the exploited. I get people throwing rocks at me because I speak up and try to share with you in a real way what's going on. I have some natural born haters. Some of them, my haters, are watching, because even my haters want to hear the truth so that they know what's going on too. Because most of the time, the people that are the haters and the people that are the sellouts, sometimes they come up to you and say, hey, can you explain to me X, Y, Z? And I don't hold it against them. Some of them I know they my haters. Some of them I know they sellouts. But I try to treat them just as human beings. Some folks can't ask me anything because they're embarrassed to ask me anything because they know they've been undermining me and they think I don't know. But when you sit around talking to your master, right, don't forget, I'm a lawyer. I interact with a wide range of people. I'm an elected official. I've been all kinds of things. So I interact with a broad range of people. And a lot of the people that you think hate me do. But there's also a lot of the people who you think hate me that keep me informed about which of you sellouts and haters are folks that don't mean me well. Because there's a lot of people who appreciate seeing elected officials standing up to protect the Freedom of Information Act, to make sure that the public has a right to know. You know, most people in Delaware believe in democracy. They believe in apple pie. As a black person, I believe in democracy. I believe in the Constitution and the Charter. And I'm black. And being black means a lot of times folks just violate your rights. But I believe in them things. I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and I'm a resident here in Delaware and in Wilmington. So I believe in democracy. I done spent most of my adult life trying to uphold it, for it to work right for everybody, for there to be justice systems that allow everybody to have justice. So at the core, those are things I believe in. And it bothers me when I see we have black elected officials like Hanifa Shabazz that thinks being a black elected official means you're supposed to try to harm other black elected officials from being able to assist the people who need help. She thinks it means she's supposed to block there being a judiciary committee so that there's a place that this whole issue with Devin needs to be at the judiciary committee so that the judiciary committee can be involved in figuring out how we're going to protect the legal rights of children if his program doesn't exist. But see, she made sure that there's no place for that discussion to take place, or for discussions to take place on how we figure out how to have those type of services that protect our children through process rights. She's committed to anything that's good for you that I put out. And see, I know more about being a government official than what she knows. But that's not a problem. It's only a problem when she don't want to tap into it, but she wants to kill it because the master told her to. But see, I'm a fighter, so whatever effort to kill whatever I'm trying to do, I'm going to keep on rolling. Go drive down King Street. I fought him for 17 years for Judge Williams' name to be on that building. And it doesn't just say Leonard L. Williams. I also fought for it to say Justice Center on that building. It ain't a courthouse. It has symbolic value. Some people don't care, but I understand the significance of why that name was chosen 17 years ago. So I will fight you for 17 years. So some cowards who want to fight for 5 minutes, you're fooling with the wrong person. I'll fight you for a lifetime if you want to keep messing and getting between me and helping the community. I'll fight you for a lifetime. And there's some techniques that I haven't used. I'm sure the haters got some techniques they haven't used either. And I have some I haven't used. But I didn't ask for all that back information that the newspaper asked for. And the reason why I didn't ask for it is because I know that when you start opening up that stuff, looking back, there's a good likelihood you're going to find something, even if you're not really looking for nothing. If you just look at the stuff, you're going to probably run into something that don't look right. I haven't looked at it at all. It wasn't my plan to.